So we're going to make some lemon curd. In this pot, I have 2.5 cups of water. I'm going to add 2.5 cups of sugar. Then I'm going to add 1 cup of cornstarch. Make lots of noise because it's the fun part about cooking. Now we'll give this a little stir. Nothing doesn't have to be anything super stirred up here. Let that kind of warm up. It's on kind of medium low, so it's going to take a little bit. You don't want it to warm up too fast because then everything gets way too thick. So now we'll leave that there for the bit and we'll do the important parts. Alright, now first things first is we have to separate 6 eggs. We need 6 yolks, so we need to do all that fun stuff. I'm sure there's easier ways and there's little gadgets and stuff to separate eggs. Personally, I just find this way is easy. The reason I'm using 2 bowls is mainly because if you break one and the shell gets in there or something, right, you don't really want to have to be fishing it around. And of course you don't want too much of the, when you're separating yolks, it's not too bad to get like the whites in it. If this were the other way around and I wanted to meringue for more like a meringue pie or meringue cookies, doing it this way, actually you should do it with 3 then, because it prevents, like let's say you're 10 eggs into this and all of a sudden this yolk was to break and get into that white, chances are, like that, unless you know how to recover most of it, you're going to ruin your meringue, because meringue does not like any kind of fat, and that's all yolk is. But a little trick though is you can take your shell and work it back out. The eggshells are like magnets to eggs. I don't understand really the science behind it or anything, but it's really nothing to take the stuff back out as long as you're using a shell. I've cracked eggshells in egg mixes many of times. It happens. I mean, you can't help it. Like, look right there, an eggshell would fall in. But it's quite easy to, it's like it attracts to the shell itself. Don't know why, but it does. So if you do put a shell in it, that's the easiest way to get it back out, or the yolk for that matter, because I'm not sure if you can notice, but most of that yolk that did fall in there is out, and if I really want it to get picky, I could sit there and just keep picking at it like that, and I would get every bit of it out. It would take really 2 minutes, 3 minutes. But luckily I'm not really using this yolk for meringue, and that little tiny bit that's in there I can work around if I was to make meringue with. Alright, so we've got our eggs almost separated. See, these double yolk ones, these guys are the monsters. Hopefully they don't really throw off the recipe. They shouldn't, because I don't think both of those yolks are as big as the one single, but pretty darn close. Alright, give my hands a little wash. Done playing with eggs. So these whites I don't need, so I'm going to put them over here. I'll use them some other time for something. Now, oh, you guys, there's nobody here. It's just Daddy making noise in the kitchen. Stop. Stop. Enough. Relax. Can't make any noise in the house or the dogs go silly. Okay, so we're going to zest 3 lemons. We're going to juice them too. But I zest them first because it's much easier than having to do it once you've squeezed the heck out of the lemon. If you don't have a zester, you can do this with a paring knife. I mean, you just got to peel a really thin layer. You don't want too much of the white. That's the bittery part of the lemon. So you want as much as the zest itself, because that's the flavor, and all the oils come out of the skin here. So it adds quite a bit of depth to the custard. I don't know if everybody does this, but I do. It adds a lot to the flavor. Okay, so that one's there. This only takes a few minutes with a decent zester. In case you don't know what a zester is, it's this little tool here. I don't know, can you see it? Yeah, see, it's got like little holes in it. It's kind of like it's like a grater, really, I guess. But it works much easier for citrus fruit than using like a box grater or anything else. Because really, you just got to run it up and down it. And if you really want to get fancy, you can use it on like a cucumber or something. So it will make little ridges, and then you can slice them up and make your, I don't know, like a dinner party type thing a little more fancy-ish. It's those little details, I guess, that make the difference, really, in a lot of cooking. Alrighty. That one's zested. Now, one more. Hello, Harley. Harley's the kitty cat. One of the kitty cats. And she's very vocal. Normally, she'll be out here screaming at me because she wants treats. But I guess she's had enough treats today. She's not screaming yet. Or she's probably wondering why I'm talking to myself, thinking I finally went nuts. I could see that too. They're like, yep, Daddy's finally gone frickin' bonkers. He's out there in the kitchen talking to himself. Of course, they should be used to that. I talk to myself quite often. Alright, so those are zested. Now this zest, I'm not going to use it all in filling because I'm going to be making a cheesecake in a couple days, probably Thursday, possibly Wednesday, and I'll let it cool all day Thursday. So I'm going to take some of this zest and put it aside for the cheesecake. Put that over there. Now, this stuff, I like to make it finer, so I just give it a quick little chop down so I'm not, you don't get those long stringy pieces. Alrighty. Zest is zested. Hello, Harley. Are you trying to get my attention? Yeah. I don't have nothing for you. Alright. Now, this zest is now going to go in this bowl with some juice. This is just, I got 2 cups of lemon juice in there for now. But the zest in there. Don't need that anymore. I'm gonna put that up there. Oh, my knife fell in the sink. I need that to wipe off, I guess. Alright. Now, I don't have a juicer thing because I don't know why I don't have one. I probably should get one. it might make life easier when I'm juicing things, but I don't juice things enough to really justify it. So an easy way to get more juice out of your lemons and stuff is roll them. Like, put some pressure on it and just roll the hell out of it until it's all mushy. You'll feel it go kind of break apart on the inside. It gets quite much softer. Like, look, this one's hard and this one's already kind of mushing. So if you roll it, it breaks up all the pulp fiber before you cut into it. This way it helps get as much juice out of it as you can. And it really saves a little bit on your whole squeezing power. You don't need to squeeze it like a frickin' madman. Now I put it over a sieve like that just because I don't want the seeds in. A lot of the times you'll also use your hand, right? And you use your in between your fingers as more or less to catch the seeds. But this way is just as easy. And you just squeeze the hell out of them. Harley, quit scratching the counter. You're not coming up. And my hands are clean, so they're just as clean as this sieve, so. That is important. You don't want, you wouldn't want dirty hands and do it. Some of these lemons, though, lately, it's like, I don't know, man, I swear they grow shit just till it's green, and then they ship it so it can, then they spray paint it orange or red or yellow or whatever color the fruit needs to be when it gets there at the final destination, because for the size of these lemons, there's like very little juice in them. You would think that they would be just packed with juice, but that's why I have to add like this concentrated juice, like the juice you get at Remington or whatever brand it is. Give it a good squeeze. You keep staying down there, Harley, you're gonna end up with lemon juice squirted on you. Then you'll know. Yeah, you don't like getting wet, do you? Make sure that's doing good over there. Alright, one last lemon. Roll this guy bad up. See, I'd almost swear they're dyeing these. Look at the counter. I don't know if you can see that, but that counter is yellowish there. And I don't know about you, but I can't recall the last time my fruit actually produced like a yellow color or orange color or whatever the color of the fruit was. I mean, hey, look at that. That one's got a hole I put in it, so I can squeeze it right out the hole. Got myself juicing lemon. I might have just discovered a new technique. Just poke a hole in it. All the juice out of that I think I can get. these in the composter. No, Harley, you don't eat lemon. Well, you might just be a weirdo, but you're not going to. Give my hands another quick wash. Alright. Those seeds can go in the garbage. Don't need that no more. Now, we got the bowl with the lemon juice. And now, we have 6 tablespoons of butter. That goes in the juice. Spatula for stirring this over here. I'm just going to give this a little stir here. It's getting warm, so it's not hot yet, but it's getting warm. Alrighty, with the whisk. Let's break up some of this butter, make it kind of smaller. Alright, now we're going to add the eggs. And we're going to whisk this up until it's pretty much well incorporated, like Alright, now we are going to move over to the hot side of the spot. Harley, you still don't get no lemon. I'm sorry. Alright, let's find your spot. Alrighty, here we go. Ooh, don't do that. Your phone will end up falling off into the freaking mix. Alright, so this part is extremely important. What you're going to have to do is you want this to get warmer, so I'll crank it up a little bit now that I'm standing here with it. But you don't want it to boil. You want it to start to be hot, like you want heat to it, but you don't want it boiling yet. And then what we're going to have to do is what's called tempering. We're going to take a cup or so of this and add it into the cold egg mix. And then whisk the hell out of it until it's cooled a little bit. Then we'll add another cup to it, and then whisk the hell out of that until it's cooled a little bit. Then we'll add this to this, and then finish the cooking. If you don't do that, what happens is, if I were to add this to the hot liquid, that's going to turn into scrambled eggs. And nobody's going to want scrambled egg lemon curd. I mean, there might be the odd one that's into that. I don't know. I won't say nobody wants it, because, you know, the way the world is, somebody might like it, but let's just assume people aren't going to want to eat scrambled egg in their lemon. So in that case, we have to temper the eggs with the warm mixture, well, the hot mixture before it's boiled, with the cold eggs. So let's get this going. Now you can see it's starting to, I don't know if you can actually see, but around the edge where there's cornstarch in it, you'll notice spots eventually start looking like clear, like jelly-like. Just keep it stirred, like it has a habit of doing that with cornstarch. But as long as you keep you keep stirring it nicely, it won't do that. So, and then once it thickens, it all kind of comes together anyway. Okay, so let me see the temperature of this, just so I have an idea what I'm dealing with here. Okay, so right now it's at 85 F, like 90 degrees Fahrenheit. So, water boils at 112, 111 or something Celsius. Or maybe 100 and something Fahrenheit, I don't know. I know it's not boiling yet though. It's not ready to boil yet. This is the boring part, I suppose. I mean, the whole thing could absolutely be boring for you, I guess, but this part is kind of important. You have to keep it stirred, or moving anyway. You don't stir it fast. You just got to keep the liquid moving, because cornstarch is heavy, and once it starts setting, slowly setting, it will sink, and then you'll notice it's stuck to the bottom of your pot. When you pour it out, you'll have like this brown layer or whatever that's kind of burnt to the bottom of the pot, which can affect the overall finished product. Okay, so this is about close to, it's at 96 degrees, so by the time I get back over there, it'll be close to 100. So, that should be plenty hot enough. No, not even hot yet. Okay, crank the heat up again. So again, in this pot was only two and a half cups of sugar, and two and a half cups of water, and then 1 cup of cornstarch. Well, I guess we can stir this up a little more while I'm waiting. Break down some of that butter some more. The butter will melt once it gets warm, but if it's in smaller pieces, it won't hurt either. It helps incorporate it better. That's my fancy word for today. Stir. Now let me see how well you guys are seeing this. Okay, I don't know. Do you see those like lumpy parts there? They're clear. That's what I was talking about with the cornstarch. It will start to do that before it, like, you have to bring this to a boil for it to set properly. If it doesn't come to a boil, you end up with, it still gets thicker, but you get those like kind of lumpy things in it. So it's almost to the point where I can start tempering. Ooh, put you back there. But those same parts, if I was to not stir this, those would sink because they're heavier than the rest of the liquid. And that's what will end up burning onto the bottom of the pot. So you really want to keep everything just nicely circulating. Alright, so now we're going to do some tempering. We're going to take this and put this here for now. I'm going to take cup of the hot liquid out. I'm going to pour it right in there and stir it. What this does is more or less brings the eggs up to a warm temperature without cooking them. I'll put that in there and stir it. Okay, we're going to get that out of there. Get that cornstarch back in there. It's getting to the transition time from it being solid to a thickener. Alright, so that's butter melted on the top more or less, just still floating. So we're going to take out this spatula, because we don't want that right yet. Put it over there. Now we're going to slowly add the eggs while we're whisking to that mixture. Get the bowl scraped out for all the little bits of zest and little bits of butter that are stuck to the side. Alrighty, now we'll just stir this. And once this comes to the boil, we will boil it for about 1 minute. Like once it starts to boil, go 1 minute. If you want to really push it, then you can stir it well the whole time. Do it like 2 minutes. But it really only has to be boiled for at least a minute for it to activate the proper, to activate the starches. And once this cools, you'll have the curd. We'll stay until I get it to the boil and it's finished and poured into the bowl again, which I'm going to wash right quick in a minute. Actually, I got another one down here, so I'll use the other new bowl. So this bowl will be what we'll pour it into, because you don't want to leave it in the pot, because the pot will be hot and then it could still burn it at the end. Turn this up a little bit so that I'm standing here stirring it the whole time. But see, there's no scrambled eggs. So we know the tempered went properly, right? If I had just poured that in there with the hot like that, it would have almost guaranteed curdled, and you'd have lumps of scrambled eggs in the middle of this. It would not, I don't imagine it would. Maybe, I don't know, it might taste horrible too. I don't know. I'd imagine it wouldn't be all that good, because those would be actual egg pieces, not just like, you know, pieces of egg and lemon. They would just be actual egg. And if you really want to get fancy, once this cools, you could take half of this or like a part of this and mix it with whipped cream. Oh man, that's some good. It's like a lemon mousse then almost. But it's really good if you had like lemon curd at the bottom and then made that lemon mousse on the top and then topped it maybe with a little bit of whipped cream. That would be, I better stop talking. I'll end up eating all this before I have to use it. This recipe does make quite a bit though, as you can see. It's the only recipe I have that I like, so I just make lots and end up making a lemon pie after the cheesecake or something. Like, this is primarily made for the cheesecake, but I might use half of this for the cheesecake, so if that, because honestly once it's cooled it's going to be like more like a jello kind of, like it will be firmer. But you could take that and whip it with like a blender or whatever, or not a blender, but like a mixer, and it fluffs it right up, so you get even more volume in it. So you could ideally turn this almost into this amount and like this and a half more, just by whipping it afterwards once it's cooled down, because it's going to incorporate a heck of a lot of air into the mix. It lightens the color a little bit, but it tastes the same. It's just a little fluffier, that's all. I've done it several times with pies and stuff just because I like the texture when it's whipped afterwards. I even do it with the cheesecakes 9 times out of 10, just because of the texture. Like it has a much smoother and a much nicer texture to it once it's been whipped again. This here though is really good if you wanted to make a lemon meringue pie or tarts, or even just like lemon. Like if you like lemon, and like you could eat this right out of the bucket all. Like it wouldn't, it's good just like that, a little like this and a little bit of whipped cream or something. I'll tell you though, this is lemony. This is not effing around. This is like lemon curd to the extreme. I don't think I've ever seen another recipe that uses this much lemon in it. Most of them, I think, might be, a cup of lemon maybe. And this process is slow, mainly because I'm stirring it. It keeps it like temperature even more or less throughout it. If I were to let it sit for too long, you'll notice it will start making that white bubbly, like that clear stuff again. For some reason that stopped, so I'm not sure. Maybe I came to the end of the amount that it lets you record at once. So this is part 2 of it. We're still cooking it. You didn't miss anything because I heard it go beep and I checked and turned it right back on. But see, it is starting to get jellied. So this is when we want to keep stirring it. Alright. More or less that's coming off the bottom. See, so that's what I was talking about, like how that would settle to the bottom. And if I didn't stir this, that would be sitting there cooking the whole time. It was just going to get hotter and hotter and hotter until that itself burns, and then it will leave a layer on the bottom of the pot with like burnt cornstarch. When this gets poured into the bowl, if I've stirred everything properly, every bit of it should come out. Like there shouldn't be a layer that gets stuck to the bottom. I'm sure anybody out there that's cooked with cornstarch knows what I'm talking about when I mention that layer. It is getting thicker. You can tell just by watching it like swirl. The swirls themselves are getting much more dense, like they're heavier. It just takes a bit, that's all. Unfortunately, cooking isn't an instant thing most people think it is, I think. But some of these things take hours to make. But I think it's kind of a lost skill almost nowadays, or becoming a lost skill anyway. So who knows, maybe this will help somebody make lemon curd, and then they'll like it, and they'll learn how to make the pie crust, and they'll make themselves a pie, and then they'll go, oh Jesus, that wasn't that hard, what else can I make? And they'll continue on making stuff that's closer to real food than anything you can buy in the store. I mean, you've seen all what goes in this. I can name everything that goes in this. Go buy a lemon meringue pie at the store and read the ingredients and tell me what you can name and what you need a PhD for to understand what the hell it is. I mean, half this stuff, it might say lemon somewhere on the list, but I'll guarantee it's going to have about 6,000 chemicals with it. This doesn't have any of that. Oh, but I know what I did forget. I forgot a pinch of salt. I normally don't add salt to things, but sometimes it does help enhance the flavor of an item. So, where I had unsalted butter, I figure I might as well add a pinch. Now see, that is getting thicker. Can you notice it's more and more gel-like. It's even sticking more to the spatula now. And you can feel it on the bottom. Like, I can feel the scraper rubbing spots that have some on it. Maybe my hands are just sensitive to touch this way, because I can feel like I can feel the barb on my knife too when I'm sharpening it, like the edge when it needs to be rehoned and stuff. So maybe it's just a me thing, but now get my whisk. Where did I put it? Oh no, it's right there in the bowl. Alright, there's my whisk. See, that's much thicker. That's almost to the point where it's going to come to a boil. So we want to keep it moving good now. Once a bubble breaks through at the top where it's showing an indication of boiling, you just keep on it for a minute or so. See? It's starting to boil, right? Like, we know now it's at that temperature. So, whisk, 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 and we're going to just do this for a minute or so. Keep it moving, because then you don't get stuff stuck. But this is the part that cooks it. If you don't get to the boil, you're not cooking it. You have to do this to get the cornstarch cooked properly. Alright, turn off the heated goats. Now, let's see about pouring it. Can you see the bowl here? Move the bowl here. Oh, that pot's hot. Should never pour towards yourself, but, you know, you guys wouldn't see it if I poured it away. Oh, and look. The bottom doesn't have anything stuck, see? I mean, the custard's there, but there's nothing burnt on the bottom. You know what I mean? I don't know. You probably know what I mean. Now, I'll just scrape out the rest of the pot. Ta-da! And because I cooked it, I get to have a taste test. Of course, I just take it off the spatula and the pot when it's done. Alright. Perfect. Oh yeah, that's lemony. That's pucker lemony. Oh, good stuff. Alright, well, last tip is, if you wish for it not to get like a film, a skin on the top, take a piece of saran wrap and set it, or try to set it, on the curd itself. This prevents the air from penetrating it, which then prevents the skin from forming. If you don't care about the skin, like, you know, you just don't care, or you're going to make these in like little individual cups or something, that wouldn't be such of a big issue. Wouldn't have to do this part. So I always leave my stuff out for, I don't know, a little while to let it come back down to room temperature. I really don't like adding hot food into a cold fridge. It makes it go bad faster due to the condensation of the food itself when it's cooling down. So that's going to sit there for a while, and I guess that's the end of that. Hope you maybe learned something. I don't know. Bye. For some reason that stopped, so I'm not sure. Maybe I came to the end of the amount that it lets you record at once. So this is part 2 of it.